Okay, well, let me ask this. Uh, are you ever feeling frustrated by music theory? Do you feel like it takes a long time for you to understand what's going on and like music theory is just a pain? Well, in this video, I'm going to help you see why it doesn't have to be pain. And in fact, it can be a lot of fun. So, um, this is basically music theory made simple and fun. As we go along, I will be watching the chat. So if you have any questions or comment, you can put them into the chat, and um, we'll do all that. But like I said before, I'm working on getting these things sorted out here. So just give me 1 second here. Okay. So one thing I was able to do. Here we go. This is so cool. Okay, can I do this? There we go. Music theory made. See if it lets me change this. There we go. Why music theory is such a pain and why it doesn't have to be. There we go. Okay, I'm changing the title of this, and let's see if it'll let me change the thumbnail. Save this. I appreciate your patience. Once I get this up and running, it won't take so long. Okay. Let's see if I can upload a thumbnail. Where did it go? This one. Okay, that's fine. We'll just go with what we have. All right. So let me start again. So the name of this video is Why Music Theory is Such a Pain and Why It Doesn't Have to Be. So for a lot of people that I've talked with, music theory is a challenge. If you're trying to learn an instrument, or even if you are a musician, sometimes music theory is like the boring part. It's the part that, in school, it's like math or, challenging and boring. But it doesn't have to be. And in fact, it can be a lot of fun. What I'd like to do is start off with a little story. Let me see if I can share this image here. 1 second, I've got... Okay, that's fine. Uh-oh, that's the one I wanted to share. Okay, here we go. Let's see if we can share this image. So my name is Joseph E. Reed. I'm the one-man orchestra, and this is a picture of a baby eating a cob of corn. So let me tell you this story. So I have a 2-year-old. This is not my child, but my child is like this. When he gets corn, he loves eating corn on the cob. And so I can make this any bigger. Yeah, you get the idea. Anyway, so when he's eating, it's like a big mess. So he'll take a bite here, and I'll take a bite there, and another bite over here, and so he doesn't really even eat the whole cob of corn, and it's this kind of big disaster. And sometimes he doesn't eat it because it he's like, this doesn't really taste good. And I think that that's similar to how people approach music theory or how music theory is taught. And it's a big mess. And for some people it's fun, like for this kid, it may look fun. But for others, it's just, you'd rather not do it. So let me just tell you a little bit more about myself, and then I'll come back to this story. So I started doing music when I was maybe about this child's age. I've always enjoyed music. And so for me, that joy was able to really propel me along. I studied music in school, starting on violin when I was 8, and played through junior high, high school, got to college, switched to voice. But when I got to college, one of the classes we had to take was music theory. And I found that, I enjoyed it because I just enjoyed music. And for me, it was always a lot of fun. But for most of the people around me, my other music students around me, music theory was like the worst class. They're like, oh, please, I don't want to have to take this class. It was required. And I was like, okay, well, why is this? Why are people so frustrated? And what I figured out is this. For most people, it's one of three things. It's either really, really confusing, or maybe they'll understand it, but it's like overwhelming, like way too much information, or it's just boring. Okay. So that's why I have this kid eating a cob of corn. Maybe I'll type on here. So I have, what do this here? COB, right? Let me just bigger. There we go. C is for confusing, right? Confusing. O is for overwhelming. And B is for boring, right? So a lot of times I think music theory is either confusing, overwhelming, or boring. Okay. If you can overcome those three big problems, then I think you'll really get a lot more out of music theory and out of your music practice. And it'll speed up how fast you learn, how fast you're able to communicate, how well you can connect with other people. It would just be a lot better. If you can relate to this and you agree, put a message in the chat about that. So, I studied music in college, right? We took college level music theory, and I was lucky. I had a great music teacher in high school and junior high that taught us the basics and taught us in the way that we traditionally learned those concepts. But I learned, this is how music theory goes, and the way things were presented. Looking back, it's a little bit complicated, but it's the way it is, and so that's why we learned it that way. But when I moved from academia into the classroom, I became a music teacher at a middle school level out of college. And so I was like, all right, kids, I learned music theory when I was your age. You got to learn music theory now. And for most of them, it was like, oh, this is really confusing, Mr. Reed, or this is overwhelming, or boring. This is boring, right? And so, okay, what do I do? How do I communicate these important concepts to my students, so that they can learn well? I was a vocal music teacher, and if they didn't know how to read music, I would have to sing everything to them, and then they would have to learn orally. They'd have to repeat back to me. So that was a lot of work on my part. But once I was able to get them to learn how to read the music, how to understand the music theory, then it made life easier for everybody and more fun. So the problem I was able to overcome is that I was able to simplify it I was able to make it present it in a way that makes sense. And one of the biggest challenges, which I worked at, is trying to make it not boring, right? And so at the end of this video, I do have, in fact, I think the link in the description, I have a document for you that gives my simplified top most important music theory concepts simplified. So instead of it being overwhelmed, you can get a succinct outline of what you really need to know in order to build upon, to be successful, have fun. Okay. So there's a problem. I believe there's a problem. I see there's a problem with traditionally how music theory is being taught. It's, if you watch any music theory video on YouTube, like, even if it says this is for beginners, I can probably guarantee that about a minute in, maybe 3 minutes, if you're lucky, you're going to start feeling lost. Like, I know music theory, I know this music stuff, and I just imagine coming from like my student's perspective, how you would totally be lost because it just goes too fast. Okay. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to overcome the cob, right? The confusion, the overwhelm, and the boringness. Okay. So, go back here. So first of all, when it comes to anything that you are learning, there's a lot of information there. And the way that it is presented needs to be in a way that people can understand, right? In a language people can understand. So what I found is that with music, you start with a lot of confusion. Music theory is a lot of confusion because we present the information traditionally in a way that's like kind of jumbled, right? For example, let's check and see what we got here. Haha. If you're here on in the live stream, shoot me a message in the chat. Let me know that you're here. So sometimes the information is jumbled. I'll take, for example, when you learn the alphabet in the English language, you start with the alphabet, right? How does the alphabet go? A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay, that makes sense. In music, a lot of times we won't even start with A. We'll start with like C and do like C, D, E, F, G, A, B. And like, okay, that's a little weird. Or a lot of times we'll start teaching like the lines and spaces on the staff, and we'll say, all right, this is F, A, C, E, E, G, B, D. And like, whoa, what are all these letters? And like, I know the letters, but why are they in this order? That's really confusing, right? Another thing I notice with most videos that I watch is they kind of follow a sequence, but they'll jump ahead really fast. So they'll start with like, hey, I'm going to teach you the absolute basic beginner music theory. And they'll say, here's the circle of fifths. Like, what? The circle of fifths? What? Fifth what? What is this talking about, right? Or here's a major scale, and then here's the modes, and here's the minor scale, and here's the triads, and here's the chord progression. Like, whoa, like that's really confusing. And that too is overwhelming, which is, let me go back to this screen I was sharing. Where's my thing up here? Okay, so so we have confusion, right? Just information in random order, right? It's not really very helpful. It's confusing. Things are here and there. And the overwhelm is like, um, it's like way too much information, just way too much information. So much that you just feel like there's no way I can ever get all this stuff down. One experience I had when I was in college, like I realized there was a lot of information that I was going to have to know. And so I was like, what tools do I have to get this stuff in my head? So I grabbed a stack of 3x5 cards, and I just started writing down all the concepts that I needed to memorize, right? Like I did like all the major scales, the relative minors, the parallel minors, the chords in that, and it was like a lot of information. And I would walk to class, just going through those cards over and over and over and over again. And, to help me to memorize it. Luckily, I didn't jumble the information as I was going along. Like I memorized it correctly. But like, that's a lot. It's overwhelming. So to overcome that, I'll go over in a bit here, but to overcome that, you really need to do less. Okay. There's a principle called the Pareto principle, which is sometimes called the 80-20 rule. And it talks about how 80% of the results you get them from 20% of the work. And that's like a similar pattern that you see throughout nature, throughout business in the world. And sometimes it's skewed even more, where it's like 90% and 10 or 99% and 1%. But basically, you can do a lot with a little bit if you know which important little bit that is. Okay. So that reminds me of the document that I'm going to share with you in the link. There's a link in the description of this video for the 5 most important music theory concepts. Okay. And I'll go over all this again in a second, but let me go to the boring part. Here's the boring part. Now, probably you're watching this video and you're like, hey, this guy's really exciting and fun. I hope. But this topic can be boring. I'm a teacher. I grew up, both my parents were teachers, and I became a music teacher when I got out of college. And so we learned to teach, and we learned to lecture, and we learned to talk, and the students are supposed to take notes and then regurgitate what they learned on the test, and okay, do it again. Okay, do it again. And for most kids, that's boring, right? For most learners, that's boring. For me, I was okay with it just because I'm a nerd, but for most it's boring. So how do you make it not boring? So what I would do, I was just like really theatrical and animated for my students, and I'd come up with silly phrases like when teaching them the lines and spaces on the staff. I would say, well, the staff is a graph like in math, which should make you want to laugh as you're going down the path towards the giraffe with this baby calf, and then I show them the lines and spaces and say, oh, 5 lines and 4 spaces, and just like theatrical to try and get them to memorize these concepts. And that was fun. That was cool. But if you don't have an exciting teacher like that, or even if you just think your teacher's too corny, get it, corny, then that's not going to do it for you. You really need to be able to find some way that fits with you and what you enjoy. So let me do this now. If you have any questions, even if you're watching the replay of this, go ahead and put them into the comments. What are some of the challenges you have when it comes to music theory? Do you find music theory to be confusing, overwhelming, boring? Any other frustrations that come along with music theory? And let me know. Or have you found some teaching methods that are helpful, that are not confusing for you and for other people that you know, and not overwhelming? So here's the solution that I've come up with. And I believe if you go to the document that's shared in the chat, in the description, the 5 most important music theory concepts, what I try to do is to overcome the confusion. I have put the information in a more logical sequence, right? Step 1, step 2, step 3, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? In fact, I used to call this the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s of music theory, right? Just really sequential. The same way we learn language, the same way we learn counting, I try to use those same types of principles with communicating the information. And I found that there are certain building blocks that you can use consistently over and over again. It's just the same blocks, use them in the same order, and you can build all sorts of things in music, scales and chords and progressions and all these things. But it's simplified and sequential. So that helps with the confusion part. The overwhelm, this goes back to the 80-20 rule. I really wanted to narrow down all the concepts that you learn in music theory. Like, you know, there's a lot of scales you could learn in music theory, right? Just based on the major scale. You have the modes, you know, the Phrygian mode and Dorian mode and Mixolydian mode. And hopefully by me saying all these things, you're like, what are you talking about? Like, look, what if there was just like one scale that you could learn, that everything else would be easier to grasp from there, right? And with all these intervals, and you know, you have chords and, you know, flat 7, 9, 7, 6, 4, 3, 2, 1, whatever. Like, okay, how can we really simplify it and just give me the core basic? Okay, so what I've come up with is really, it's 4 elements, and it's the musical alphabet, the chromatic scale, generic intervals, and specific intervals, or counting half steps. Okay, and my approach is I go from generic to specific, in this, taking those 2 pillars. You know, here's the general and here's the specific, and when you put them together in a particular configuration, a particular formula, then you get a result. And so the 5th element, I guess, or the 5th part, would be an example of something you build when you take your generic and your specific and a particular formula to create that. Okay, so just by, I hope that made sense. Does that make any sense? Let me check this here. What's the staff? Is that the sheet music? I'm not good. Sorry, Xalara 4. Okay, so I'm glad you asked. What is the staff? So that's another element of the overwhelm. Let me just kind of say. So the staff is like when you're reading music, okay? Imagine you had a sheet of paper, right? Imagine you had a sheet of paper. Y'all can see this here. And let me just close my baby. Bye-bye, baby. Okay, got a sheet of paper. A staff is like, kind of like when you're reading paper, it's like the grid that helps you navigate where you are in the story or where you are on the page. Okay, so in music, the staff is a visual representation of the notes, of the sounds. Okay, and so what I found is it is very important to know the staff, to know that graph that helps you to read music, right? I can't do a graph in my hand anyway. But I don't start there. I start with teaching just the musical alphabet, right? That's how um, people learn the English language. My son, he's memorized. He's two. He's memorized the English alphabet: A B C D E F G H I J K, right? And so, if you know that, if you have that framework first, you can build upon it. You can draw out what that might look like, and you can learn how those letters are shaped, and then you can learn how those letters relate to other letters. You know, how does an A and C go together, or how does a T and a F go together, whatever. So, so the staff I can get to later. In fact, I do get to when I am teaching, doing webinars, which I'll be doing actually right after this. I have a webinar planned for anyone who's interested in going deeper into this, but and in the workshops that I do as well. So the staff helps you read the music, but it's not one of the five most important concepts that I teach. It's something that's derived from that. Okay. Um, so good question. Any other questions? Let me know. So I want to have one clear point from all this, and I hope I'm. Oh, so I talked about overcoming confusion. So my system is sequential, right? And it follows a simplistic order, just like following how you learn a language. You know, you learn by ear, you learn the letters, you learn your numbers, and then you learn how those go together. With numbers, you learn how to add. 1 plus 1 is 2, 1 plus 2 is 3, you know, and then you learn subtraction, and then you learn multiplication, and then you learn division, and then you can build upon from there. So that's my idea with how to master music theory. And again, there's a document in the description that goes over these core elements. Simplification is, or I'm sorry, for to get over the overwhelm, I give way less. So I have 5 concepts that I go over instead of the thousands and thousands that you could be trying to memorize as you're learning music theory, right? You can go ahead and memorize all those things if you want to, but I'm just telling you, if you do these 5 first, it'll make everything else easier to understand and to memorize. And then finally, the boring part, you got to have fun, right? Music theory is meant to be, music is meant to be fun. It's meant to connect you with other people. It's meant to inspire you. It's a tool used for communication. It's a language. And so ways that I have worked to make music theory, the language of music, to make it fun is, one, you know, simplifying it, making it clear, and, you know, giving you less to work with at a point in time. And then gamifying it, right? When I had those flashcards and I was trying to memorize all those concepts when I was in college, like, that was a game to me. That was a challenge to me. And so that was fun. And so because that was fun, I was able to stick with it and do it. My music theory teacher did a fun exercise one time with us where we were learning the Fibonacci sequence, and don't even worry about that, but we were getting, it wasn't the basic music theory, it was like the second or third year in music theory. And anyway, he used to do these quizzes, and there were time quizzes, and so there's a race. Whoever finished first would, you know, win these prizes. So the one he had, the prize he had when he was doing the music theory concepts that were related to the Fibonacci series was a pineapple. And he said, whoever finishes first and gets everything right gets the pineapple, you know. And I was like, all right, I got this. And I won the pineapple, and it was fun, you know. It was fun. And it was tasty pineapple too. But anyway, so whatever it is that you can do to gamify your learning, right? Once you have the basic concepts, make it fun. Then you will have success. Then you'll be able to overcome the boredom. Okay. Let me come back to this cob one more time. Okay. So, so let me just show you. Here we got our kid. So the confusion, imagine as he's eating the corn, you have a bite taken out here, a bite taken out there, and it's just a big mess, right? Let's overcome that, young lad, by let's just eat one row at a time. You start over here, you go to this side, okay? And you start over here and go this side, kind of like the cartoons where they have the typewriter, ding, okay? If you follow that sequence with eating your corn, it's going to cause a lot less confusion and you'll get a lot less mess. And with the overwhelm, like, okay, you don't have to shove the entire cob of corn in your mouth all at once. Like, take your time. You can eat a few kernels at a time, chew on them. You know, all the kernels are important. You'll get to them eventually, and they're all related. But take your time. And then with the boringness, make sure you got some nice butter or salt on your corn, you know, so that you're enjoying it. Have fun with it. Music cards are fun. So thank you for bringing that up, Ben. One thing I did with my students is I invented a card game. I have it here, called Music Cards. And basically it's taking all these concepts. I'll just flash them to you. Taking all these concepts and making games out of them. Okay. If you come to my the webinar, which I'm going to do next if all goes well, I'll tell you a little bit more about music cards and some other ways that you can master these concepts, have fun with them. But really, I think the most important thing is knowing that this music theory stuff doesn't have to be a pain. It doesn't have to be boring or confusing or overwhelming. You know, it is possible to simplify it and follow a sequence that's not going to be confusing and to have fun with it. If you do those three things, if you figure out how to overcome these obstacles, you're going to go far, and it's going to revolutionize the rest of your music practice. You'll be saving tons of time and having tons of fun connecting with other people. Okay. So let me see, make sure I got my notes here. So just a call to action for you, what you can do. Make sure you check the links in the description. One of the first links is to a document that I created that's titled The 5 Most Important Music Theory Concepts. Okay. And I narrowed it down, and I really truly believe if you master these 5 concepts, everything else will be easier. And they're not very hard. The first one you already probably know. It's the musical alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay. But do go through that document, and you can get it. Get it in the link in the description. And then, obviously, in this video, I didn't really go in depth on each of the concepts. I usually like to sit with a person and say, all right, make sure you know how these concepts function, you know, what they are, ask your questions so that I know you have them down and you understand them. And then once you understand them and how they relate to each other, then all you need to do is practice them, have fun practicing them, hopefully, and memorize them, apply them. You'll be doing great. So let me know if this is helpful to you. Feel free to leave comments. And I will be coming out with more videos where I will answer your questions, music theory questions. I've been doing music for over 40 years, really. And I love it. It's a lot of fun. And I've been teaching for many, many years too. I don't know how many years, but so I love helping people learn music theory, learn music, learn how to practice better. And so would love to help you out. If you find this helpful, do leave a comment and a question if you have any questions. And my plan right now is to do these videos every Monday. So look for that. And let me see if I got any more messages on the. I don't see the description. Will it be after the live stream? Let me check and see. Thank you, Ben. I hope it will be there. So I went in and I updated. Let me try this here. I don't know. We'll see. Let's pray that it's there at the end. If not, we can try again for next week and see if I can get that description there. Also, what I might do is next time I will have the link that I can put into the chat so you can get it from there too. All is a learning process. It's a little bit confusing and overwhelming sometimes, but it's certainly not boring. All right, I'm gonna let you go for now. Thank you all for being on the live stream. Make sure you like and subscribe and send your questions my way. I'm about to run off to this live stream, not live stream, but a live webinar right after this, where I'll be going more in depth with the concepts, the 5 most important concepts. So if you're interested in that, look for the link that is in this document. Let me put the document, let me see here. I'm gonna try and put it as a chat. Can I do that? Give me 1 second. Whoa. Can I join the chat? We'll try that. You may already have this document, but click the link, click that document, and in the document, there'll be a link for the webinar that I'm going to do. My plan is to start at about 2 o'clock with a webinar, and it'll be on Google Meet. So check that out. Maybe Ben, you can check it out and see if it works. We're getting something worked out, but we're having a good time. So thank you, and see you next time. In the meantime, Joseph E. Reed here, the One Man Orchestra. God bless. Let me see here.